All right, welcome. Dave here, observing the media in real time, and the media is obsessed with this abortion ruling. And a lot of what the media does on abortion is generate anger. And they've been doing it since Roe v. Wade was enacted. And now, because it's been overturned, now it's going to be, the crisis. There's a crisis in certain states where you don't have access, unmitigated, uninterrupted access to abortion on demand. You don't have it anymore, but you still have access to birth control. You still have access to condoms. You still have access to basically responsible means to prevent this from happening. Are people upset because this might actually change their behavior? Like they might have to make some adjustments in their life, kind of like the road, that was about to curve into the ocean and someone built a wall there to prevent you from going off the edge and careening off the cliff. Well, it's different, Dave. Bodily autonomy is really important. Oh, really? Oh, it wasn't important like 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, where the government was urging you to essentially violate your own bodily autonomy for the greater good, right? Well, this is a personal issue, Dave, between the mother and the doctor. Okay, so let me say this. People always talk about a procedure, right? This is a procedure. Are you going to have the procedure? And I'm thinking to myself, a procedure doesn't sound very good. Typically, a procedure is like when you operate on someone to take out something that they don't need or don't want or might be infecting them, could be a cancer. You're going to have that procedure to remove the cancer. Do you notice that the language in this for decades has been, well, you can't prevent a woman from having this procedure. It's a procedure. You take out something that is malignant, right? And you dispose of it. You remove of it, you dispose of it. And I do think we've become a very callous world, in the case of the United States, a very callous place where people just look at this as, hey, I've got this appendage, I need it removed. You're blocking my access to the doctor, quote unquote, who's going to remove this malignancy so I can go about my life. In the meantime, you've got people who try to have children and can't do it, right? And I know there are a lot of kids that aren't being cared for right now, but that's not an argument, right, to kill people. It's not an argument. I mean, in California, they have a bill, I don't know if it's still out there, but supposedly post-birth, this would allow for someone to basically change their mind. Change their mind. Oh, gee, I had this baby 5 days ago, but I'm having second thoughts. Once it's out, isn't it murder? Isn't it? I mean, people are saying, on the pro-choice side of things, are saying things like, oh, well, it's not really a baby until it takes its first breath. It's not really human until it's out and takes its first breath. How come babies are kicking inside the womb? How come their mothers can feel them moving around, moving? Okay, something's going on in there. So, just because it's inside, right, and it's enclosed, doesn't mean it's not alive. Look, here's my more moderate perspective on this. Back in the 90s, we had Bill Clinton and we had Newt Gingrich, right? And those two guys were kind of forced to get along with each other to some degree. So the government would continue to work. And Gingrich had this revolution. And Clinton, he was this young, brash president at the time. Women were swooning over Bill Clinton. And they were literally doing favors for Bill Clinton, right? So all that stuff aside, though, what I'm getting at is there was this language that was really well crafted that I think appealed to both the pro-life community and the pro-choice community when Bill Clinton came out and said safe, legal, and rare. Rare, okay? The pro-lifers hung on to that word rare. Really? Fewer abortions? We're not going to have like 1 million abortions or 800,000 abortions each year? Wow, that sounds like it would be an improvement. Now, most pro-lifers are like, we need to ban it, we need to get rid of it, we need to outlaw, this is horrible, this is like a genocide, this is really, really bad. And most people who are thinking objectively and not just thinking about their own personal situation and not attributing characteristics to this that really don't exist, like this human rights violation. I don't know how this is a human rights violation. Well, you don't have a right to terminate, then you're violating your own personal bodily autonomy. And then we have this discussion, is there one body or two bodies here? Well, it's not really a body, it's a clump of cells. Okay, so by that logic, then there is no starting point to life, that just all of a sudden life just appears out of nowhere, because it's kind of like a tree. People would say, okay, was that tree ever a sapling? Was it ever a seed? Watered the seed, it grew roots. At that point, you saw something sprouting up underneath, but was it a tree yet? Was it fully a tree, or was it just the beginnings of a tree? And so it's a philosophical question, but obviously everything has an origin. It has a beginning point, and that beginning point is very small, it's very minuscule, and it's easy to kind of push that aside and say, well, that's not really anything at this point, because it's not thinking for itself, right? Most teenagers, by the way, aren't thinking for themselves, so that's a stupid argument. Okay, it can't survive outside the mother, right? Well, technology has made it a lot easier for a premature, fetus, babe, I would say baby, but you could say whatever you want at that point. They are keeping these fetuses and babies alive at a very, very young age, and that's because of technology. Of course, the ultrasound kind of blew up the idea that even at a very young point, a very new development, that baby wasn't a baby. I mean, it just, look, folks, we used to have middle ground on some of this stuff, safe, legal, rare. And, the pro-choicers would say, okay, safe, legal, they don't really care about the rare part. We don't strive. I think even politicians on the left, maybe 25 years ago, said, you know what, we don't want to have a lot of abortions. We just want to make it so you can have one if you want to get one. Now it's like abortion on demand, government-funded abortion up until birth, and in some cases in California, maybe even after birth. This is why the left, they think that, the United States didn't want this overturned. They do Pew Research or whoever, left-wing poll, and they interview all these people, and they're basically like, no, the Supreme Court, look, this wasn't in the Constitution to begin with, right? There is no right to abortion in the Constitution. This was bad constitutional law because it wasn't based on the Constitution. It was made up from basically whole cloth. And then now that it's part of the national consciousness, it's hard to eliminate. It's like a government program. It's impossible to get rid of the Department of Homeland Security, right? It's impossible to get rid of the IRS. You can't get rid, it's forever. So people are not used to things going away like this. Like, this was a government institution. Roe v. Wade was a government entity, basically. And now, by the way, it's not completely being eliminated. It goes back to the states. And then the states will decide. The people in those states who may have differing opinions, like the people in California, do not think the same way people in Mississippi think. And you shouldn't be trying to convince people in Mississippi to think like they're from California, because they're not. This is why you have states, and the states are sovereign, and they can make laws and decisions based on their population. That's called democracy, real democracy, not the end of democracy like what happened on J6, right? Well, it was the end of democracy. I'm so worried about all democracy. No, you're not. You want mob rule. You want people who are going in the streets being loud and obnoxious and saying the most vile things I think I've ever heard human beings say, right? And you want those people to control public policy the most. So here's the solution to the problem. It goes back to the states, and the states tailor the law for that particular state. Done. Over. I don't care, what's going on in California. If you don't like what's going on there, by the way, you should really move to a state that is more in line with your values. See, the national divorce is happening. A kind of soft secession is taking place. It's just not being talked about in that way because you don't have anything official. You don't have people signing documents or making treaties, or there are no public declarations that, hey, Missouri is not going to participate in anything that California is doing. Florida has decided basically to become its own territory. Florida is strengthening its national defenses, which is true. So a lot of these things are happening without, like the sincerity of it in codified form. Doesn't mean it's not happening, though. It is happening. And I think this is all part of a decentralized approach, which more and more people are recognizing is the future of the country. That is the future. It's not a top-down, one-size-fits-all bureaucratic mess. What we need is more local government, more local decisions based on what the people in those jurisdictions actually vote for. And I know this is a really touchy issue and it isn't going away, but the overreaction to it, I think, is what's really driving the narrative right now. As people continue to voice their opinions that, next it's going to be birth control pills. No, I don't think anyone, I heard one person talk about how interracial marriage is next. Yeah, from the guy on the Supreme Court who's black, who's married to a white woman. Yeah, he's going to overturn interracial marriage. That's next. I mean, all of this crazy conspiracy crap that, they want to focus on rather than the fact that maybe a few human beings will escape and become human, right? And become fully grown adults and have the right to pursue happiness. And not all of them are going to escape because some are still going to be caught in that early phase where they don't get to experience a life. And it's really sad to me. It's really sad. And to those people who refuse to kind of alter their behavior or change, people are constrained by rules and laws every single day. Some of them are there to protect you. Others are a bit more restrictive. And then still others are somewhat authoritarian. This does not look authoritarian to me. You know what it looks like? It looks like common sense. Let the states figure it out. And then, if you don't like where you're living, well, not everybody can move. Well, it depends how involved you are with the, I don't know how to say this, but are you that sexually active and that at risk for not being able to access, quote unquote, the healthcare that you need? Because if you are, then you really start to kind of make my point about this isn't really about, just having access to abortion. This is about using abortion as birth control, which I think is an abomination. And I think people should think twice about engaging in certain behaviors if that's how they're going to deal with it. You need to take responsibility. People used to talk about safe sex all the time. Now they don't talk about it as much. Why? I'm not sure, because everybody's kind of reckless and doing what they want to do. If it feels good, do it. Remember that? Well, now, if it feels good, do it. And I don't care what kind of collateral damage that wreaks on the population at large. All I can say is if a few lives are saved because of this, and I do consider them lives, I don't consider them protoplasm or a cluster of cells or an unidentifiable tissue that needs to be removed. The procedure idea, we need to have this procedure to get rid of the thing that is, causing the problem. That's when you go have a procedure, right? Well, in the old days, this would never have been referred to as a procedure, but now the news media has run with this and really kind of made it almost like you're having your tonsils removed or having a malignant tumor taken out. This is really sad where we're at today, but words, they used to mean things. I think they can still mean things. Subliminally, they get to you and they're ingrained in your consciousness. Nobody wants to force like a 14-year-old who was raped into carrying a baby, right? Nobody thinks that's a good thing necessarily, except the baby, which had nothing to do with the rape and who eventually might grow up to be a great leader, could be somebody who would cure a disease or just be someone's husband or wife or brother or sister. And these are the things now that people aren't really considering because I think life is cheap, it's callous, and it's so cold out there. It continues to grow cold each day. Men and women continue to wax coldly about things that once we used to have empathy for, whether you're pro-choice or pro-life. If you're pro-choice, you should say, yeah, this would be a last resort, but pro-choicers aren't saying that anymore. And if you're pro-life, you need to understand that there are some circumstances like rape and incest that are very difficult to deal with and aren't so cut and dry. But again, my ultimate answer on this is the result of that sexual activity had nothing to do with that. That was not of their doing. And there are literally thousands of people in this country who can't have children who would love to adopt a child who might actually have a chance in this world if they had parents who loved them, who had the financial resources to take care of them, and who were truly excited about being parents. I completely get teenagers not, being ready for parenthood. I get all of those arguments, but I think my bottom line on this is the baby had nothing to do with any of this. The baby is an innocent bystander, an innocent byproduct of something that probably shouldn't have happened. And we should be discouraging people from doing irresponsible things, but we can no longer do that anymore in this country. Hey, quit smoking. It's not good for you. You can say that, but you can't say something like, hey, stop having unprotected sex. You're not ready for that. You're not ready for the consequences of what that might mean. So that's my video on the topic. Look, I'm not so dogmatic that I won't listen to people, but here's the bottom line. You could still go get your abortion, and you'll have to maybe work a little harder to get one. And that might force you into a new way of thinking. It might change your behavior a little bit. So a lot of people eat healthier, right? They exercise, they do things that would make their life better after maybe they had a few bad experiences. And in this case, why is this the most important right that we have? The right to privacy is important, the right to a fair and speedy trial, all these things that seem to be taking a backseat to cultural issues all the time. And we never address some of those cultural issues that are affecting everyone rather than, a minority, a very loud minority, which, again, it's frightening to see and hear about what these people might or might not do out there. These pro-life places that are getting vandalized all over the place. Yeah, the pregnancy center that's going to help the girl either have the baby or find someone who wants the baby and give counseling and advice and in some cases financial support. Yeah, you should definitely vandalize those places because those places are doing, the devil's work, right? Wrong. This is how we operate as a country. We have ways to help people who are in need. And typically that's never expressed, especially in the media. There's only one side to this. And that side is, yes, let me have my abortion. That's the only thing that really matters to a lot of these people. They don't care that there are services out there because, quite honestly, they're not interested in having a child. They're interested in getting rid of a child. And that's the honest truth. So again, you can disagree with me. It's fine. I just think another issue to polarize the country even more And like we needed that. It certainly is a distraction, though, from all the other things going on, like that pesky war in Ukraine and the fact that our inflation and our national debt and our gas prices and all these different, and our border, don't forget about the southern border of the United States, all of these things, right, that we should be truly concerned about, and we're just completely avoiding because of this decision. Anyway, that's the video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Also think about Patreon for $1 a month. I don't promote Patreon over here on this channel as much as the other channel, but if you can do $1 a month, that would be fantastic to support this channel. And yeah, I'm hoping to have James Roguski on again at some point. The problem with James is he's got so much information that you can't talk about on YouTube that it's hard really to do a video with James. So you might want to look for he and I over on either Rockfin or Odyssey or maybe Rumble, but I'll let y'all know when I do that. And in the meantime, try to have a good day.